Well, I'm not sure if I'm available or not. That's a Seahawks question, but
that's a Seahawks question. Russell Wilson tells Dan Patrick on the radio this morning. The report from Jason La Canfora that Seattle received calls from teams over the weekend about Russell Wilson. They declined to engage those calls, but Wilson's camp frustrated with the team's inability to protect him and that the situation warrants monitoring. Tim Kalishaw, around the horn to you. How are you monitoring this? And in a year of quarterback disarray, does Seattle have a Russell Wilson problem?
Well, it's not really a Seahawks question when you have a no-trade clause. It's a little bit of a Russell Wilson question, too. And the fact that he didn't just come out and say, of course I'm not available, I love everything about Seattle, that does raise some eyebrows. And here's a shocking, I've got something that may shock you, and it's not what I'm wearing. If you look at Russell Wilson's career, and if you look at Patrick Mahomes' career, okay, they both, in their second and third years as starters, went to 2 Super Bowls and won one. Got off to a great start. Since then, Russell Wilson has gone 6 years without getting to an NFC championship. If Mahomes went from today for 6 years, never getting to an AFC championship, we would say things really fell apart for Patrick Mahomes. So some part of Russell Wilson may look at it as, hey, the offense is good, the defense stinks now, they're not really building the right team. Maybe there is a sense of unhappiness.
Spain, you believe Seattle has a Russell Wilson problem today?
They just might after that answer. And to Tim's point, I do think that for whatever reason, we focus on certain places like the Packers and talk about how they will be misusing Aaron Rodgers if they end up with only one Super Bowl. We look at Deshaun Watson speaking out about his situation with the Texans, and we sort of presume that despite having 8 straight seasons of being sacked as many as 40 times, which is a big number, and despite the fact that Tim's right, they haven't returned to that same success we might have anticipated for someone who started off so well. We've largely talked about that being a good contending team that's got most things right and just need to keep him from running around so much and let him cook. Well, maybe there's more to it, and his quotes seem to imply that. I don't think he's going anywhere, but I do think he does want to have a little bit more say in how they build that team.
And now, Woody Page, does Seattle have a Russell Wilson problem right now?
I think Kalishaw has a problem. Jimmy Buffett just called me, Tim. He'd like his shirt back. In regard to the Seahawks, it's anybody but Russell Wilson problem. First, they should trade Russell Wilson's camp to another team, I think. But secondly, they should worry about what they have. And they've already addressed one of the problems with Marty Schottenheimer, who we'll talk about later. His son was released as the offensive coordinator. What happened, Tony, in the second half of this past season is they were throwing the ball too far down the field too often, that Russell Wilson ended up in the second 8 games of the season, 3 of 20 on throws that were longer than 20 yards. So he ended up running the football too often. They were trying to throw down the field rather than trying to get more to their tight end and to their backs. I don't think it's a Russell Wilson problem. He's not going anywhere. Yeah. They've got to get that defense back to the way it was.
You're bringing up a lot of things, but specifically in the report from La Canfora, Woody Page, sorry to interrupt you, it's that he's been sacked 394 times in the last 9 seasons, which is, the most in NFL history. So I know I've been asking, does Seattle have a Russell Wilson problem? But Clinton Yates, to you, I'll ask, does Russell Wilson have a Seattle problem?
Yes, Russell Wilson does have a Seattle problem, and as long as you have Russell Wilson, you do not have a Russell Wilson problem. That's the whole point of having Russell Wilson. So for me, if you're Seattle, you can't let this get out in that kind of a way. I don't understand these franchises, just like Sarah brought up, between the Packers and the Texans that just aren't talking to their main dudes. What kind of an operational standpoint is that? I'm never going to get that from these NFL front offices, and that's what I've learned this offseason. That I don't know that I qualify as disarray. I kind of think of it as hot stove, which is a little fun for the quarterbacks. But yes, talk to your mans. That's how you make things work. I'm never going to understand why guys have to be in the media talking about what could be happening in their own club.
Sarah, you wanted to add something, please.
Yeah, I would just say that to Clinton's point, there's an estimate that only about 10 NFL teams right now know for sure their starter, which means guys like Russ, who seem pretty secure, can look around and be like, you know what, maybe I should ask for what I want or make some demands, because there's a lot of teams looking.
Right. I mean, we all knew Russ was one of those 10 that was locked into Seattle, but maybe here's the opportunity to get something else from the team. Okay. But that's a 0% chance they're trading Russell Wilson from, I think, everybody here, right? All right. We'll move on. Big news from baseball on a couple fronts. Let's start with the ball. MLB having Rawlings loosen the tension. just easing the tension, baby, of the first of the 3 wool windings of the baseball. It will take less than an ounce of weight off the ball, will bounce less, allegedly, so it deadens the ball. This is in reaction to ball flight in recent years. Report here from Mino Saris and Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic. Clinton, is baseball getting it right if they're deadening the ball?
I think the part of this they're getting right is obviously by announcing it and telling everybody what has happened. One of the issues with this in past years regarding Major League Baseball is that people have been like, is something going on that we don't know, because the stats are getting shifted in a way that is bothersome. However, I think that when you talk about the ball and the seams and all that, it's not just about things going out of the yard. There are pitches and there are ways that people throw that are going to be affected by this as well. So I'm very interested from an informational standpoint to see how this affects a lot more than just the numbers of the guys that are going out a lot. It'll be very, very different, I think, for a lot of players to adjust to.
Woody Page, baseball deadening the baseball. To that you say what?
I'd say, are we going back 110 years to the dead ball era? I mean, what in the world is baseball thinking about? The biggest problem they have is not enough offense. And so they want to have less offense by not having a designated hitter this year, by trying to change the ball, and finally admitting of, yes, it was a little bit juiced those 2 years when we were talking about that on the show on a regular basis. But really, do you want to cut down on home runs and add to more strikeouts and have a situation where it's just a game that's even more bad than it is right now? It makes no sense whatsoever, especially to the seam heads that want more seams, not fewer.
There, Spain.
Well, there's a bit there that I'm not certain is 100% true. Baseball isn't telling us that they intentionally juice the ball. In the past, what they've said is these very, very small parts of a millimeter that are being affected by changes at the factory level are what's causing this. And that's causing us to have a conversation about whether it's intentional, whether they're trying to add to home runs. Their desire to have consistency with the ball is important. If that's what they're trying to do there, by all means, I'm all for it. The difference is this going to fix most strikeouts, most home runs, the shift affecting balls that go into play? The problems that baseball have won't be fixed by the ball, but it will prevent us from arguing that they're manipulating the game intentionally by changing the ball.
It will prevent us from arguing. You think anything is going to prevent us from arguing, Sarah Spain? And now Tim Kalishaw.
I mean, to Woody's point about a lack of offense is the problem in baseball today, I don't think that's true. I think it's the kind of offense. I think the sense that it's all, there's either home runs or it's walks and strikeouts, and there's not a lot of balls in play, player movement, things going on, and that has a lot to do with shifts and a lot of things that are not going to be impacted by a different winding on the ball. I disagree with Clinton in terms of, I don't know why they would announce this. I don't think you announce that you're going to deaden the puck and not score as many goals in the NHL. I don't think you announce that you're deadening the ball. I think you do it if you want, and then players can figure out the result for themselves.
Wow. I got everybody shaking their head no to that. Clinton, first to you.
No, I mean, changing the ball is changing the ball. It's going to affect a lot more things than people are willing to pay attention to. But I do want to make up one point that back in the day, there used to be a time when there were both balls that were in, and people used to have an idea. They would say, you know what, use the live ball when there's nobody on base, use the dead ball when the people are on base. I don't know, just something that people thought about 100 years ago.
I don't know if that's, I'm not sure I even follow that. Here's what we know and what we don't know if we know. You know, what effect it will have? Allegedly 1 to 2 feet less of flight on a deep fly ball. In Korea, though, slugging percentage has gone down some 14 points or so with this ball as well. So that's what we're be looking at. But deadened baseballs and a couple more changes that we got a taste of last year in baseball. The 7-inning doubleheader, that's back to stay. And in extra innings, a runner starting on second base. That is here to stay as well. As Woody alluded to before, universal DH is a no this season. Sarah, is baseball getting this right?
These are head in the heart conversations. My head says universal DH is what makes the most sense. My heart says that I like the differences and the strategy required to have no DH in the National League. My heart says it's weird to change the rules of baseball in extra innings and have a random guy on second, but my head says the game needs to move a little faster and it makes it more exciting, so I'm here for it. And so I think that they're making the right choices for me to keep the game interesting and to keep the game moving, so I think they're on the right track with all of this.
I think if you're going to put a man on second, you've got to wait till something else. The 12th inning. I don't do it as soon as extra inning starts. I don't like that. The 7-inning doubleheaders would be okay if it was one admission price and they actually played a doubleheader like Woody and I went to as kids, and you paid your tickets and you got 2 games for the price of one, but they're scared to death to do that, and so we're never going to see it.
Woody Page?
I'm okay. Sarah, I got to tell you, my kidneys are saying that you played 2 7-inning games. I think that's most important to me at my age. But in regard to you wanting to have the pitchers continue to hit, 87% of the time that a pitcher goes to the home plate, he makes an out. How in the world is that interesting to the game? I do like the extra inning rule. I thought it enlivened the game and shortened it last year. I do like the designated hitter in both leagues. I don't know why they didn't do that. I think that these rules actually are pretty good. They just didn't go far enough.
And Clinton Yates.
The designated hitter should be an option for the home team every game, just to give you an option to mix things up from a strategy standpoint. And as far as the international tiebreaker rule is concerned, the runner on second, it didn't shorten the games. It made games better. Players were willing to take more risks on the base pass, and it just loosened things up in extra innings. It made it more fun.
Are you guys hearing what are you picking up what Clinton Yates is saying here, though, that the DH, the home team, morning of, certain time has to make an announcement, and then the strategy starts for the next 6 hours. Should we have a DH?
I like it.
Should we not? Yeah, I think it's very forward thinking.
Creative.
My liver says 2 full games full of drinks.
Yes, all right. So there's the liver, there's the kidney. You get what Woody's talking about, the kidney. Like, it's not just a stretch. He needs a bathroom break every 2 innings still.
Yeah.
Taking a break here. We do have some sad news today. We mourn and say goodbye to Marty Schottenheimer, the consistent, unwavering coach of the Browns, Kansas City, Washington, San Diego. It's very easy to get lost in wins and losses and rings. And even today, I read too much about that. Read it thrown like a rock in one headline, and that's regrettable. His greatness best in his own words, Mr. Marty Schottenheimer. UConn 63, South Carolina 59 in overtime. Paige Beckers took this game over. Actually, that doesn't even consider she had already had the game. So she took over the game. She already took over. 13 straight points into the fourth, into the overtime. 31 of UConn's 63. Clinton, what's the number one takeaway of number 2 over number 1?
Number one takeaway is that all the hype we've seen online for Paige Beckers is absolutely true. For those of us who have been watching her mixtapes on IG for a while, she is the truth. Only player in UConn history to have 3 30-point games at this point in their career. And when Kate Fagan tells me somebody's exciting on a college basketball court, I listen.
Okay, we'll have Kate here and she can get her own points there, Clinton Yates. Woody Page.
Paige is going to be the biggest name in sports for another 10 years. I think in the eighth grade, when she was in the 8th grade and went to the state tournament, she was picked to the all-tourma team. And so people have been following her career for a number of years. Being born in this millennium is going to make a big difference, too, because she's going to be a great player for years and years. And here's something you didn't know. One of the finalists that she was considering very heavily was South Carolina to go to school to.
Okay, I mean, I think we did know that a little bit, but I'll give you a point. Tim Kalisha, how about you?
As the only panelist here who was courtside when South Carolina ended UConn's run of championships in 2017, this is a reminder that UConn hasn't completely gone away. They still get its players. Paige Beckers is going to lead them to another one.
Dara Spain.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to add to scored half the team's points, scored the final 13, 30-plus for a third straight game. But that's the one that stands out to me. No UConn player before has done anything, and you throw her name in, that's going to blow my mind because that is a factory. The women who have come through that program, and for her this early to already be doing stuff like that, it's wild.
I'm glad you guys were able to refrain from calling her a top 5 guard in pros or college. That was a conversation last week. We can appreciate her first dozen games as a freshman. And you talked about her mixtape, Clinton. I said the mixtape of Easy Fudd, who's going to UConn next year. They're going to be all right, I think. We move on. Miami, North Carolina, postponed last night. Miami was in Chapel Hill ready to play. Images of North Carolina players celebrating after the win over Duke. Saturday, unmasked in large groups came out. Both the teams and ACC decided it was best to postpone. There have been statements from the school, collectively from all the players today. But I want to ask you, Woody, a postponement over a forfeit or over suspending players. Was that the right call?
No, I think suspension of the players, because I think players at other schools have to learn how serious this situation is. Even though the players have apologized, I think they should have been suspended for 1 game.
I think we all think about forfeits as being fair, but then you think about all that might lead to, and you get into a really fuzzy area there. I think 1 game suspensions for these players, something along those lines, would serve the purpose.
Thank you.
No, because suspensions affect those players, but the problem with COVID is they're going there affects all the other players' ability to play and be in the game. You have to go with forfeits. And in this case, you have visual proof and an acknowledgement of what they did, so you have to make players pay. The fact that at this point we're still saying it's a mistake to not wear masks indoors after we've been told for almost a year that that's what we need to do, I'm done listening to that. Start to make people accountable.
Yeah, but this was the base level smart decision. Miami's got 4 players out due to injury anyway, and so it wasn't going to be a good situation for them going into it. But UNC's played the most games in the ACC. They've been doing this pretty well going forward. So I think stopping the game and figuring out later if you want to start punishing people, that's fine. But they made the smart decision right now.
Woody Page, 40 points. Not even Woody could let that lead slip away and buy or sell. Yates, 28. Tim, let's just see the shirt once more. Is that short sleeves? Is that, copy from HQ?
There's sleeves.
Oh, there's
I don't know.
Wow, there's a lot of cloth in there, man.
Very Yatesian look there.
That's great.
Thought it would do better. Thought it would get me more.
Sarah, I love your look, your color today as well. Very, very nicely done. Clinton Yates, Woody Page, showdown in 4 minutes and 7 seconds. Stick around. From Kevin Garnett to the New York Times Magazine going around. I want to get you guys' thoughts on it. Quote, I don't think guys from 20 years ago could play this game, end quote. There's context, there's stipulations. Here's a more full quote. But Garnett saying guys from 20 years ago can't play today's NBA struck you as what? Clint Yates.
It struck me as progressive. Too many oftentimes we hear old guys on TV talking about how younger guys can't seem to get anything done the same way they did back in their day. I like it when they reach back to the younger generation and tell them they're doing it right. That's just me.
That is utter stupidity. You're telling me that Karl Malone couldn't have gone to the basket, Kareem couldn't have played, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird. Are you give me a break?
Whoa. Woody, you got your years. He said 20 years ago. You picked the best players from 1985 from most of those. This is an interesting conundrum. Can guys, you always think about I think it's great that a former player didn't dump on current players for the first time. We'll move on. Spurs 105, Warriors 100. Steph Curry sat half the fourth quarter. Steve Kerr says he's not going to stretch Steph's minutes even if he's chasing wins, which they didn't get yesterday. They're the 9 seed right now. Woody, is this the right call?
Absolutely. Where are they going, really? They want championships. Is this a championship team? No, there's no title out in front of it. If they get close to the playoffs at the end of the year, play more games.
Well, listen, Woody, they still got a chance because they got more playoff teams, but I think the reason this is a smart decision is if Steph Curry is the one who is agreeing with him here. They've got a lot of things that they've put him through in terms of what this roster has dealt with, so if he doesn't want to do it, that's fine.
Woody Page, how could you not carry over the points from the show into the showdown? FaceTime goes to Clinton Yates.
Just like last week.
We've been talking about Super Bowls quite a bit this week, and this weekend is the Super Bowl of NASCAR. However, it is a somber date on the calendar for those of us who have been fans of that motorsports league for a while because it is the 20th anniversary of the death of Dale Earnhardt. As a longtime NASCAR fan, it's the first big thing I can remember that happened in my life, but it was a progressive one. They changed their safety rules, and it's something that has made the sport a lot safer going forward. I want to give a shout out to my man Ryan McGee, who's got a whole series coming out about how that incident and how that racer changed the rest of that sport forever. Check it out. Daytona 5, baby. Coming up.
That's going to do it, folks. Thanks for coming around. We're on a 23.5-hour break.
Good to hear
we'll see you tomorrow around the horn.
For baseball.